Joe Biden and Rishi Sunak have held one-on-one talks in Bali at the G20 summit after a missile landed in Poland, killing 2 people. Last night, it appeared that this might escalate the conflict, dragging NATO into the fray. But, Mark White, thank you for joining me this morning. It doesn't seem to be that tense now, does it? Although there are still questions to answer.
Yeah, I mean, the watchword, I think, is caution at the moment. Rishi Sunak said at his news conference that officials in this country are working to try to assess exactly where this missile came from. There are security officials that have been speaking to the Associated Press anonymously, suggesting it may have been a Ukrainian missile. But to be honest, whether the missile came from Russia or Ukraine, the end effect will be the same, which will be to galvanise NATO to come full square behind not just Poland, obviously, because of the concerns it has about a war raging on its own border, but also to give Ukraine the weapon systems it's been calling for a long time. And we've given Ukraine many millions of pounds, as have other countries, and weapon systems. But obviously you're fighting a large aggressor like Russia, who just yesterday launched 80-plus missiles at Ukrainian targets in towns and cities right across Ukraine, targeting civilian infrastructure and civilian areas. Well, I'm afraid, a missile going astray, if that's what happened, is a real-world consequence of what happens when you have a war raging like this. So President Zelensky has been calling for some time for the more sophisticated NATO air defence systems to help him out. And recently, actually, the British military, along with NATO allies, were exercising in Poland and other countries in the region with air defence systems to try to enhance their capabilities there. And it may be, Bev, that Poland actually now asks NATO for more help in bolstering its air defences, because a stray missile is a very real possibility, as we've seen played out.
Is there a precedent for this, Mark? I was trying to think, in other conflicts, I'm trying to think when America and Great Britain, we were fighting in Iraq, for instance. There's this terrible term, isn't there, of collateral damage. In this situation, 2 people have lost their lives. But it doesn't necessarily mean that these instances have to trigger a huge escalation, does it?
No, and I don't think they will. I mean, even if at the end of this investigation, it turns out that this was a Russian-fired missile, no one really realistically believes that takes a measured view of this, that would have been a deliberate choice by the Russians to target Poland. Whatever it was, from Russia or Ukraine, it was probably a missile going astray or accidentally hitting Polish soil. But the net consequence will be the same. It will be to stiffen the resolve of NATO countries, yes, to go full square behind Poland and offer Poland whatever it needs to feel that it's more secure in terms of its ability to prevent these missiles coming over its border again. But also, as I say, to give President Zelensky more of the weapon systems that he feels he needs to be able to better and more accurately target these missiles coming over from Russia. Because it's clear we're in a new phase of the war, having suffered some very significant defeats recently, including surrendering effectively and pulling out of the city of Kherson in the south of Ukraine. Russia's smarting from that. It's resulted in them now sending many, many more missiles over to try to pummel the civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. So we are going to potentially see the risk of more missiles going astray like this, hitting civilian targets in Ukraine, but also potentially neighbouring countries, as we've seen in Poland.
In offence, this is Putin's reaction to getting a bloody nose in Kherson. He turned up the volume, didn't he, on the attacks. We're going to talk now. Thank you, Mark. Don't go anywhere just for the moment. We're going to talk now to Magdalena Skajewska, Global Affairs Correspondent at Polish Radio, and Jan Streczek, a spokesman for the Agreement Party. Good morning, both. Thank you ever so much for joining me. If I can come to you, Magdalena, first. How was the news of these stray missiles, shall we call them, greeted in Poland?
Well, I would say that last night, the mood here in Poland, I believe, was quite somber, because I think many Poles might have been thinking that it was exactly what everyone feared, that whether it was a deliberate or accidental strike or attack, everyone feared that one way or another, since the beginning of the war, there is a possibility that such a missile might hit Poland, given the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine. But I must say that Polish authorities and Polish experts and many people here in Poland were and are still very, very extremely cautious about what they say, how they say it, and everyone is still awaiting more facts to come. What we know now is that two people are killed, that a Russian made missile did hit Polish territory, but we still don't know, and Polish authorities emphasize that very much, that we still don't know where this missile came from, and who launched it. And I think it's extremely important to be cautious, because I think everyone is aware that it could blow out of proportions somehow if we are not careful enough. And I think Poland, as much as all NATO allies, also the Americans, are careful so that one word is not spoken too much, and so that we can establish the facts first and then act on it. There is a special North Atlantic Council meeting scheduled for today. Also here in Poland at midday, there will be a National Security Council, urgent meeting of the National Security Council, also organized so that the President, the Prime Minister, ministers, and also the head of the army can talk and also analyze the facts that are being established.
Thank you. Jan, as Magdalena was saying there, this is a time for caution and not overreaction, although I imagine there must be some anger in Poland this morning.
Yes, yesterday incident is the first case of death of Polish civilians in this brutal war just near our east borders. This missile attack, Polish government, in cooperation with NATO allies, in working on establishing whose missile was it. Now, Mr. President Andrzej Duda, Polish President, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki are touched with our allies. For example, with President of the United States of America, Mr. Joe Biden, with Mr. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, and now we must waiting for next facts to do something next.
Okay, Magdalena. Well, let me ask you, President Duda in Poland. What kind of statement has he made about this? Who is he looking for support from?
Well, I believe as much as President Duda, as much as all other Polish authorities are, I think, very happy about the support from all NATO allies. I think no decision will be made without consulting NATO allies. And since last night, since yesterday evening, these consultations are ongoing. President Duda spoke with Secretary General of NATO Jens Stoltenberg, with Joe Biden, also with heads of states and governments of many NATO member countries, and this support, this firm support from NATO allies that we hear about, is extremely important for Poles. I think Polish ordinary citizens, as much as Polish authorities. What President Duda said last night was that still there are facts to be established, but most probably it was a Russian missile that hit Polish territory. But again, we still need to wait for more facts to be established.
And Jan, if I can just ask you, obviously we are here in the UK, we are a long way from the conflict geographically. You guys are living just over the border. Apart from this one particular attack, which, as you say, has taken the lives of 2 people, how else is it affecting daily life in Poland, having the Ukraine-Russia conflict just on the, a matter of miles from where the majority of people will live in Poland?
Firstly, we should remember that we are very big allies of Ukraine. We cooperate with President Zelensky. Every Polish people know that Ukrainian territory, that Ukrainian society is brothers of Polish society. But we should, the most important thing, that we must stop Putin terrorists. We must stop Russian state, which is murders, which is bastards, which is people who's killing civilians in Bucha, in Kherson, in many of Ukrainian cities. And this is now most important thing. In Warsaw, we are safe. In Poland, we are safe. We are part of European Union. We are part of NATO alliance. But now, first thing, helping Ukraine and destroy Russia.
OK, thank you both ever so much for joining me this morning from Poland. Jan Strecek and Magdalena Skajewska there, bringing us the latest. And as you say, we think there will be a press conference this morning, actually, before I'm off air. So we will let you know as soon as we hear that, a NATO press conference.